Ole Miss got another commitment in the transfer portal as Pete continues doing what he does. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in America. That is all because of fans like you watching content like this. Thank you very much. On today's show, we're going to talk about Cayden Lee committing to Missouri to join Austin Simmons up there. Both players honestly deserve a standing ovation when they return to Oxford next year for what they helped build along the way. They were actually key parts of this class, and they left in exactly the right way. But first of all, from there, we're going to look at some intriguing luxury pieces that are still available in the portal, including Raul Aguirre and JoJo Trader out of Miami, as Ole Miss still has a full week left to add talent. It all starts, though, with Tommy Kinsler committing to Ole Miss from Miami this weekend. The upside of the signing is off the charts, and it's another example of Pete Golding doing exactly what he kind of does best, which is building depth, versatility, and long-term strength in the trenches. All of this and more coming up on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to our insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. So Ole Miss got a commitment from an offensive lineman named Tommy Kinsler out of Miami. Really good player. When you talk to all sorts of people, they give you different opinions of what's going on. I reached out to Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. I reached out to Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators. And, of course, the Florida football scout, Brian Smith. They all had similar things kind of to say, but these are kind of the highlights going on with a Tommy Kinsler. Dono said that Kinsler is a massive man that moves very well for his size. He's more of a guard in his opinion, but he cross-trained at guard and tackle at Miami. He wasn't getting on the field very much as Miami's rotation of offensive linemen. That was a pretty deep unit. Playing time likely influenced the decision to leave in his opinion. But he was expecting him to be a rotational guard tackle piece for Miami this year had they stayed. That's Alex Dono, Locked On Canes. Now, Brandon Olson of Locked On Gators said he remembers his high school recruitment was memorable and that Ole Miss might need to be on the lookout for drama along the way. Kind of a shot there of what's going on, but Brandon Olson of Locked On Gators said that. And Brian Smith of the Locked On the Portal, the Florida football scout, said he can't believe that Miami let him walk. I mean, that's a big praise thing. And Brian Smith knows all of the Miami players that we're going to mention on this week's episode. But to me, that was a pretty heady comment that he just couldn't believe that Miami let him walk. Really interesting stuff. He is obviously offensive line, guard, tackle. He's 6'6", 340 pounds. He played in 6 or 7 games this season. And when he played, he was a road grader. And it's just kind of like Sam Pittman. When Sam Pittman recruits an offensive lineman, you know that offensive lineman can play. And somebody moving that well for that size with multiple years of eligibility, this is a good deal for Ole Miss that needed bodies more than anything else in the offensive line. Listen, I think that Carius Kern and Terez Davis are penciled in as the starters going into spring. Now they're going to have to compete. They're all going to have to compete. But it doesn't just end there, okay? Everybody needs to realize that Connor Hall's got just as much attention as Devin Harper did this season as far as the excitement level around him, and he is a tackle. when you add in Cooper Johnson, who a lot of people forget about Cooper Johnson. I'm curious to see how he develops. But if I'm not mistaken, he came in around July or August last year as a junior college All-American from Western Iowa. He's out of Lincoln, Nebraska. He's somebody that can play. He's a tackle. So that's a 2 deep right there that I just named. And that is what Kinsley is walking into. Now, I think he can perform very well, and he has all the talent in the world. And to me, he's a really similar player to Diego Pounds. And Diego Pounds turned out to be a really good football player for Ole Miss, especially in the run game. He has the body type to take the defensive line and get movement. And you saw against the Miami Hurricanes in the Fiesta Bowl, Ole Miss could not stop them from getting movement. And when they had a powerful running back like Mark Fletcher, it was problematic at best. So Ole Miss is in a position to make their offensive line better. They have pieces in place. This just kind of adds to it, and it makes you wonder if there's anything left to go, because Ole Miss has another week that they can add players. A lot of people don't know that. Now, the ice storm that is going on in Oxford right now, and I hope everybody is unbelievably being safe and made it through this ice storm, because Oxford got hit really hard. But there's a weekend before the deadline for the drop ad date, which is February 2nd. That's Monday is the last day to drop or add classes for registration, which means Ole Miss has a weekend to try and get players on campus. It'll be interesting to see who at the last moment Ole Miss tries to get. Now, everybody needs to remember, Michael Trigg and Jackson Dart committed on like February 1st of the year that they came in. So Ole Miss still getting impact players. That is still very much on the table. I like Tommy Kinsler. I think he can do a lot of stuff, and he will, at a minimum, push Carius Kern and Trevez Davis to be the best version that they can be. But I think they're going to be all right on the offensive line. Ole Miss has gotten to the point, in my opinion, there's not any holes left on the team. It's all about luxury pieces going forward. And there are a couple of luxury pieces that they can add. You know, Cayden Lee, we're going to talk about him in the third segment. At this point, he was a luxury piece, his returning. If he got in the transfer portal and left, okay, good for him, because at that point he was a luxury piece coming back because of getting Jonte Cook and the ceiling that he has. There are 3 or 4 slot receivers that would be very good on Ole Miss's team right now. If you added a 4th in Cayden Lee, I know his production has been off the charts at Ole Miss, but it's not anything that's irreplaceable. And that's the thing that you have to look at, irreplaceable. And when you look at Tommy Kinsler, just building up depth and multiple years of eligibility in the system. I'm telling you, if Ole Miss gets Trinidad Chambliss back, that waiver that everybody is so confident that happens, that last week was unbelievably confident, at that point, Ole Miss is a top 5 team. Not even close. I mean, they are a national championship contender if Trinidad Chambliss comes back. If he doesn't come back and Deuce Knight is your guy, you're probably still 15 to 20 in that ballpark, because of the athleticism and everything that Deuce Knight can bring with the running backs and the wide receivers that you have. This is going to be a good team regardless. But if Trinidad Chambliss comes back, it's a national championship contender. Bar none, absolutely crazy to think of, but that is the truth. So will Kinsler open up a pipeline to Miami? Ole Miss is pushing with at least 2 players that maybe could get in the mix in this final week of the transfer portal. We'll talk all about that next. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing into the favorite or riding the underdog or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off this season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel to get started. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing, but it keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 per month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com or check the link down in the show notes below to learn more. We also have an all-access tier that is $15 a month that you can get a video breakdown of Luke Farrelly. You can get a lot of stuff from Coach Corey Burton. Mike Huseman contributes as well. Dalen Flowers gets some stuff in as well. They all do an excellent job, and I'm pretty excited to see where they can go. All right. So Ole Miss added a tight end coach. And if you did not know, or if you were unaware, his name is Cody Woodiel. I think I pronounced that last name correctly. We'll see. But he is going to be the tight end coach. He has been with Mario Cristobal since Oregon. Like, I think they started in 2017. There's been a nice path between Cristobal and Woodiel. And his hometown is Hernando, Mississippi, and he has roots in the Mississippi JUCO system. He's known as a big-time recruiter with an offensive line background. Ole Miss has already gotten a commitment from an offensive lineman from Miami and Tommy Kinsler. So it's already paying off potentially. Now, it could be something that just the Grove Collective and Walker Jones did really well, but I don't believe in coincidences type stuff, so we'll see how that looks. Now, there's other players in the transfer portal that is kind of up on it because of the academic calendar that is out there. A lot of schools, the drop add date is already passed. Like LSU's transfer portal class is over. It's finished because they have passed their drop add date of January 22nd. Ole Miss's drop add date is on February 2nd, which means this weekend could be a visit weekend with registering on Monday, especially this weekend being important because of the ice storm that is going on in Oxford, Mississippi. But when you consider Pete doing what he does, well, I would expect that he is going to try to figure some stuff out. Now, there's a couple of players that entered the transfer portal that gossip-wise, there's people talking about that Ole Miss is trying to get in the game. I do not know how far along in the game they are, but they are trying to get in the game. And two players that are interesting, first of all, is Raul Aguirre, a 6'2", 230-pound linebacker from Miami. He appeared in every game this season for the Hurricanes, had 43 tackles, 2 TFLs, 1 pass defense, 1 quarterback hurry. He had 10 tackles over Miami's college football playoff run. He's somebody that played a lot for the Hurricanes this season. Now, one thing that's interesting about this, I reached out and talked to the Locked On Canes person about Raul Aguirre. Just flat out said he's a great guy. If he's on your team is better for it. That is the recommendation that he got. It's kind of like when people talk about Austin Simmons and Cayden Lee. It's real similar to what Raul Aguirre was talked about. He's somebody that Ole Miss is probably trying to get into the conversation whenever you look at Luke Farrelly and Taj Butler and Keaton Thomas, another linebacker going into the room with Jacoby Hobson coming up. That would be a pretty deep room at that point, and they can run, and they're also pretty big guys. Now, another player that I was curious about, that I heard about, that Ole Miss might be going in after is JoJo Trader. He's a 6'1", 182-pound wide receiver. Went to the same high school as Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. In his career at Miami, it was a couple of years. He has 19 catches, 269 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was ranked number 25 in his 2024 class by ESPN and has multiple years of eligibility. Aguirre only has 1 year, so he would be a one and done. But JoJo Trader has multiple years of eligibility. A lot of people assume that he's going to get into the transfer portal and go to NC State because I think his high school quarterback is up there as well, and apparently they are boys, and that should not be discounted. But Ole Miss is trying to get in the game with JoJo Trader and Raul Aguirre. Whether or not they will or they won't, we will see how that looks. But as we all know, Pete just kind of does what he does. And I'm sure that all the stuff that people talked about last week is probably going over. If these are 2 players that Ole Miss wants, I don't think there's an Ole Miss fan out there right now that doesn't think that Pete will do what it takes to get it, to do what it takes to make it happen. And honestly, if we're going to be real about it, that's all that Ole Miss fans wanted. Somebody that would fight for you, somebody that would do that they thought took to win the game, to be above and beyond. And because of that, Ole Miss fans are likely very happy with what's going on with Pete Golding. Now, there's probably a couple of other players that are in the transfer portal. I think that everybody needs to pay attention to who gets brought in for a visit this week if it happens, because with the time crunch and everything going on, there's going to be some really fast turnarounds if anybody gets brought in to visit. Now, I realize that Oxford right now is a disaster area. It's terrible. And like I said, I'm praying for everybody involved with what's going on in Lafayette County and the mayor Corinth and all them. There was a line that went through that just had thunder ice basically during the storm. So I will pay attention to what is going on. But if anybody visits, that is notable, because at this point you don't take visits for no reason. And if that person doesn't commit to you, there's probably a reason for that as well. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on there. The transfer portal is about a week away from closing. This time next week is the end of Ole Miss's drop ad date. Like I said, Jackson Dart and Michael Trigg signed with Ole Miss on February 1st. So it is still very, very possible to get big-time players to commit to university at this point. Now, the transfer portal being over, you hear that a lot. The transfer portal being over, it's over for them. It's not over for you. So we'll see exactly how that looks. All right. When we come back in our final segment, it's purely a thank you, honestly, for Cayden Lee transferring to Missouri to be with his friend. And when they return next year, there should be a standing ovation for both of them players for what they did for Ole Miss in 2025 and before. We will talk about all of that next. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to score than what's on the screen. AJ Storr has moved to a 6th man and has jump-started his game as he's become the undisputed leader of this Ole Miss basketball team. They remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get here makes it count. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. So check out Mazda.com to learn more. One thing's interesting, and I debated doing this segment because this is more probably a Missouri segment than it is an Ole Miss segment at this point. And It's just a thank you, honestly, if we're going to be real about it. Austin Simmons handled this year literally as well as you can handle what's going on. It's not his fault that he got Wally pipped. He did absolutely nothing wrong. But in a case to where he would be justified yelling to everybody that would listen about what went on, he just put his head down. He supported Trinidad. He helped Trinidad out at a level that he hasn't at this point, and Ole Miss was better for it. So when you look at Austin Simmons at Missouri, there automatically should have been a standing ovation when his name gets called out of Vaught-Hemingway Stadium next year anyway. When you add in his boy, Cayden Lee, transferring away, he deserves one as well for what he did. He took some rock shots in the playoffs and just continued to get up and make plays. Both of which, in my opinion, deserve standing ovations when they return to Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Cayden Lee would have been back, in my opinion, and based off of what he was telling people as well, if Trinidad would have gotten his waiver earlier. Whenever it got delayed and kicked down the road and they keep delaying, all of that, Cayden kind of ran out of time. And he ended up going to Missouri, but he did everything the right way. Austin did everything the right way. And there's nothing but gratitude and thanks for what they did in Oxford, Mississippi. Go to Missouri, be great. I hope you have a career year in 11 out of the 12 games that you play. In that one game, I'm going to root for you to fail, but it's only that one game. You guys were instrumental to the 2025 season and deserve thanks for what you did. It wasn't a situation like went on with TJ Daugherty and Prince Willem Amiellen. Completely different thing. You guys handled it the right way, and you deserve all the credit in the world. And I will be honestly rooting for you in 11 out of the 12 games. Thank you so much for everything you did for Ole Miss, and I hope you go and be great. That would be awesome. Thank you very much for everything. When you look at transfers in this era, I always like to call it the mercenary era of college football. And in some cases, it just is. But money isn't the only reason that players leave from time to time. Sometimes it's just something a little bit different. And when you look at the position that Ole Miss has gotten into, because with the addition of Jonte Cook and Cameron Miller, and then you add Dylan Alford, that slot position is going to be fine. At that point, Cayden Lee became a luxury piece for Ole Miss football. A piece they wanted because he's such a good player, such a nice guy, such a great kid. But not a piece that affects winning and losing, potentially. Same thing goes with Austin Simmons. When Ole Miss got Deuce Knight, Austin Simmons could move on and do what he needed to do. Thank you very much for all of that. So we're in a position, a rare position, to where everybody involved in this Ole Miss Missouri situation has a chance to be better off for it. Austin needed a reset. He just did. It was just a year that didn't go well for him with what's going on. He just needed a reset. And he's doing a heck of a job recruiting those Miami guys that he recruited to Ole Miss to begin with. Chris Graves is going to be up in Mizzou. He obviously followed Austin. Cayden is going up there. He's a dude as well. But I'm excited for what they can do. I think Missouri has a really good team and has for the last several years. It'll be interesting to see what happens when they come into Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Should be really fun. All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk about the transfer portal all week. So make sure you subscribe and follow the show and so you can get all the episodes. Do all access as well. We're going to have breakdowns of certain players if we can find the video with Coach Corey Burton and the other people on there. We're on all the social channels as well. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you check out a second listen, either Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC, or heck, even Locked On Vandy. Hotty toddy, everybody. And we are coming into the last week of the transfer portal. I hope everybody continues to stay safe in this ice storm, as it's going to be below freezing until about Saturday at this point, which means that you need sunshine to melt the ice. So be careful, stay away from power lines, all of that stuff. And we will continue to talk to you every single day. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Thank you. Hotty toddy.